A massive water crisis.
This is our home!
With Southwest Florida caught in the middle.
Oh man, it's all piled up.
Blue-green algae in the Caloosahatchee canals.
I've never seen such death in my life.
And in the Gulf, red tide is leaving a trail of devastation.
Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Now NBC2 is questioning state and federal leaders.
Is this just a photo op?
As they see the devastation for themselves.
It doesn't matter what you believe in water.
Storms whipping through Southwest Florida. NBC2 is the first to alert you if we'll see more action tonight.
It's super freaky.
Why new protections didn't stop a skimmer from hopping up on a Cape Coral gas pump.
Sudden charges for SunPass users. What to expect if you use Lee County's toll systems.
I think they're kind of pushing it down our throat.
The deadline, putting the pressure on Lee County to plan for security before the next election.
NBC2 News at 6.
Skies are finally starting to clear after another stormy afternoon. Here's a live look at what's moving through now on Southwest Florida's only live Doppler radar. We have team coverage tonight as a tropical disturbance in the Gulf threatens to send even more rain our way over the holiday weekend.
The algae covers 80% of the lake, and more than 100 million gallons of that algae-tainted water are rushing into the river every hour.
Meanwhile, the algae that's been covering the river has made it all the way to the Sanibel Causeway. Our team coverage begins tonight with NBC2's Jacqueline Beavis. She is live on the causeway tonight.
71. See that black smoke south of the airport?
See all the smoke and everything going on out there.
I saw this plane going really low.
And then hear the fire engines and the police come. I was getting out of my car. I mean, could have landed on my head.
That's where my office is located. Is there a fire over there?
It was really loud. It was a loud boom.
A plane comes crashing down into a Fort Myers daycare just minutes after it took off from Pagefield Airport. 2 men were on board, and just within the last hour, we have learned the passenger died and the pilot was seriously injured. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Brittany Weiner.
And I'm Trent Kelly. NBC2 has a team of reporters gathering the latest information on this deadly crash. Reporter Jesse Pagan just finished speaking with NTSB investigators, while Megan Bragg spoke with friends of the 2 men on board that plane. But our team coverage begins tonight with reporter Chris Lovingood. Chris just talked to some eyewitnesses who watched all of this unfold. He joins us live tonight from the crash site. Chris.
Witnesses are shaken after today's harrowing event. And let me show you right behind me. That's the plane that crashed into that daycare today. Just a tragic scene here. One witness was feet away, watching in horror as the crash happened.
Went straight into the Chico's building.
A terrifying sight. A low-flying plane.
It was horrible.
Crashes into a Fort Myers daycare.
It was really loud. It was a loud boom.
We heard like a big, huge boom.
2 people were inside the plane. 1 person died. The other sent to the hospital. That plane had just left Pagefield Airport. It traveled too close for comfort to Ashley DeRose.
It was flying very low. I would say it was maybe going like 20, 25 feet above my car.
She saw the crash happen right in front of her.
The top of the actual plane hit the top of the building, and it did like a flip, like a somersault, and then it hit the ground and set on fire.
This is video of the aftermath. Investigators can be seen removing the plane's propellers from the crash site. DeRose says she called first responders immediately as passersby scrambled to get to the crash victims, but couldn't.
Not far from the Chico building crash site is Cohen & Cohen Catering. A manager here says their building is not far from the flight path from Pagefield Airport.
I was scared. I was grateful that it wasn't during the week, because that's where all the kids go.
Carmela McEachern finding it hard to focus on her work. Her mind is troubled by what could have been.
We have people that work here with us that fly in all the time. Could have been them.
We continue digging for answers as to how this crash happened, and even now, crime scene tape is still up as the investigation continues. Count on NBC2 to update you with the latest as we know it. Live in Fort Myers, Chris Lovingood, NBC2.
See that black smoke south of the airport?
Yeah, we're aware.
Any ideas what it is?
Know exactly what it is.
So that's where my office is located. Is there a fire over there?
An airplane.
Are you kidding?
No.
And that was audio from Page Field's air traffic control tower as that plane came down. Smoke from the crash could be seen for miles. NBC2's Jesse Pagan is live at the scene where the National Transportation Safety Board just gave an update. Jesse, what did they tell you?
Brittany, the NTSB tells us their investigation preliminary will take about 2 to 3 days. Take a look right here. You can see the tail right there. We're told that most of the plane was destroyed in a fire. The NTSB and other investigators will likely be looking at a lot of records and even working with the manufacturers of the plane to figure out what went wrong. Chaos ending in flames along Metro Parkway Saturday morning. All of it happening in front of Richard Waltman's eyes.
This is not happening. It's crazy, yeah.
Richard and his coworkers watched as a plane crash landed into this daycare building inside of Chico's headquarters.
I saw this plane going really low, and when he passed the trees, his wing clipped the trees, flipped over, hit the side of that building, did a somersault, landed in front, and blew up.
Surveillance video shows the impact. You can see on the top right of the screen the plane crashing into the building. The NTSB says 2 people were on board. The passenger died and the pilot was seriously injured.
He was staggering down the sidewalk.
About 10-15 seconds after it hit, it had exploded pretty loud and engulfed in flames for a while, and it probably went off about 2 more times after that.
The NTSB says the plane left Page Field just before 8 in the morning and tried to make an emergency landing on Metro Parkway. Now, the agency is working to find out what caused the plane to fall from the sky.
It's got to be pretty rare. I don't know what the odds of that are. Seeing a plane crash, I mean, the airport is right there.
Now, the Lee County Sheriff's Office will be handling the death investigation aspect of this entire plane crash. The NTSB tells us a preliminary report, part of their investigation, should be out in about 2 weeks. Live in Fort Myers, Jesse Pagan, NBC2.
All right, Jesse, thank you. We're now learning more about the people riding inside of that plane. We know the Piper PA-28 Cherokee is owned by the Fort Myers Flying Club. The club's president, Anthony Greco, was piloting the plane. He suffered serious injuries in the crash while his passenger died. NBC2's Megan Bragg talked to members of the Fort Myers Flying Club. She's live from Lee Memorial Hospital tonight with the latest on the pilot's condition. Megan.
Yeah, and I just talked to Lee Memorial Hospital staff. They tell me Anthony Greco is in good condition tonight. Anthony and the other man in the plane who died were both part of Fort Myers Flying Club. Members of the club tell me today that they were both experienced pilots, and now they're just trying to figure out how this happened.
This is a horrible tragedy. We don't know why it occurred. We don't know why these things happen.
It's the question on Fort Myers Flying Club Vice President Mike Jackson's mind after Anthony Greco and another member of the club crashed this plane into the Chico's complex.
It's truly hard to describe how hard it is to have a crash or to lose a person. That alone is tough enough.
Jackson says Greco has been flying planes for several years and became president of the club last year.
He has been a member of the Flying Club for years, and I consider him to be a very experienced pilot.
This plane, the Archer Piper, crashed into the Chico's building early Saturday morning, but instructors from the club tell us it's never had problems before and is inspected every year.
The airplane gets an annual inspection, okay, and then in addition to that, it gets a 50-hour inspection. Okay, and that's just consistent.
Pilots are also required to have their license, training, and flight hours.
I don't know how many hours of flight time either of our pilots had. I know that I would trust them with my life, and so I consider them both to be excellent pilots.
Now the flying community is coming together, mourning the loss of one of their own and hoping for a speedy recovery for another.
When they happen, all we can do is wrap our arms around one another and comfort one another.
Now we are waiting to hear the extent of Greco's injuries, and authorities have yet to release the name of the person that did not survive this crash. Reporting live in Fort Myers, Megan Bragg, NBC2.
And here is another look at that surveillance video of the crash again. We've learned the daycare that plane hit is on Chico's corporate corporate campus here in Fort Myers. Now, that's where many employees leave their children during the week. And still ahead on the News at 6, we have reaction from some of those parents who say this tragedy could have been much worse any other day of the week.
A massive water crisis.
This is our home!
With Southwest Florida caught in the middle.
Oh man, it's all piled up.
Blue-green algae in the Caloosahatchee and canals.
I've never seen such death in my life.
And in the Gulf, red tide is leaving a trail of devastation.
Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Now NBC2 is questioning state and federal leaders.
Is this just a photo op?
As they see the devastation for themselves.
It doesn't matter what you believe in water.
Let's get a quick update of the thunderstorms greatly reduced in the amount of storms we're seeing. Now I'll show you the forecast for the rest of tonight and a look at Ernesto. That just formed in the tropics. What does that mean and where is it going? That's coming up a little bit later.
Water crisis, blue-green algae pushed down the river from Lake Okeechobee and red tide lingering in the Gulf off our coastline. The crisis now drawing federal agencies and state politicians to Southwest Florida for the first time. Good evening, I'm Kelly Burns.
And I'm Peter Bush, live at the Cape Coral Yacht Club, and look at what we pulled out of the water at the Cape Coral Yacht Club Marina. This disgusting algae still plaguing the waterways here in the Cape. Now, better news on the Cape Coral Yacht Club beach side. Let's show you what we're dealing with here. You do not see the blue-green algae anymore at this location, just kind of the brown, murky water. So the water looks okay, relatively speaking here, but keep in mind, there is still algae present in that water. That is why these no swimming signs remain up here at the Cape Coral Yacht Club beach. These have been up for a month now, and it's a real drag for families who want to come out and try and enjoy the beach. You want to go in the water, it's so hot, but you can't do it right now because the algae is still present out here. Now, Kelly, as you know, the algae is just one of the major concerns with our water right now. The other, red tide.
Yeah, there's concern that algae could make people sick if they go in the water, and that red tide is killing sea life in the Gulf. These images stirring up emotions over the past few weeks. A dead dolphin hauled away on Fort Myers Beach just last weekend. Hundreds of dead sea turtles and sharks. The new red tide report shows high concentrations of red tide right now off Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties, with the most right there in Lee County.
Yeah, for weeks, crews have been working to clear dead fish and animals that just keeps washing up on shore. On Sanibel alone, crews have cleared more than 300 tons of dead sea life. Lee County crews have cleared another 115 tons. Let's go to NBC2 anchor Devin Turk, who's on Fort Myers Beach, where Congressman Francis Rooney toured today. Devin?
I have noticed some dead fish out here in the water today, including one right over there right now. But on the beach, it's a different story. It's way cleaner here than it has been over the last couple weeks. That's because all day long I've seen crews coming up and down the beach here, cleaning it out. One deep breath.
Guide us through till we get into the dry season.
And crews tell me they're going to continue cleaning up the beaches of all this dead fish until this problem is gone. Reporting in Fort Myers Beach, Devin Turk, NBC2.
As the red tide continues to wreak havoc along the Gulf Coast, the blue-green algae is plaguing the Caloosahatchee. It's being pushed down the river by the Lake Okeechobee freshwater releases. Congressman Francis Rooney spent part of his day in North Fort Myers. A lot of people live on the canals and the water there. In one place he visited, Paradise Marina in North Fort Myers. Sure as heck not a paradise right now. I mean, he saw some nasty stuff. Rooney described the conditions as unlivable. He said he wants to change that, but people who have been dealing with the toxic algae for years say they don't buy it.
I don't understand what Rooney's going to be doing here other than making a grandstand play.
And it needs more than just a Band-Aid. It needs an actual fix.
Rooney says his goal is to relieve some of the economic damage and the suffering from the algae. He says he is looking at government resources from the federal perspective, anything that can be utilized now that a state of emergency has been declared. Kelly?
And the thing that surprised him most, the congressman, was the smell, one thing that we can't really show you on television. Now, Congressman Rooney, starting this morning near Lake Okeechobee, where the blue-green algae bloomed. Polluted lake water is then released west into the Caloosahatchee to relieve pressure on the Herbert Hoover Dike. It's in desperate need of repairs, and it could fail if lake levels rise past a certain level. NBC2's Jacqueline Beavis right now in Clewiston. She talked to leaders about expediting repairs to the aging dike.
Millions of dollars constantly pouring into work on the Herbert Hoover Dike. Reporting in Clewiston, Jacqueline Beavis, NBC2.
And NOAA just sent us the latest satellite images of Lake Okeechobee. Right now, you can see that algae is covering about 50% of the lake. In the darker colors you see there, the majority of it, though, is sitting on the east side of the lake, away from where the water is pumped into the Caloosahatchee.
The money to speed up the repairs to the Herbert Hoover Dike around Lake Okeechobee has certainly become a political issue, and there are no shortage of politicians who have been trying to claim credit for speeding up the money to fix the dike. That has a lot of people asking if Congressman Rooney's visit today was nothing more than a photo op. Both Francis Rooney and Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart deny it.
Look, if $514 million additional dollars is just a photo op, I'll take those photo ops. So I don't think getting the money to complete the dike 9 years earlier than expected is a photo op at all.
Both men say they are working with politicians from both parties to try and fix the issues with Lake Okeechobee's dike and with the algae crisis. Coming up in just a few minutes, we talked to a waitress who works here at the Cape Coral Yacht Club who is bringing home about half of as much money in tips as she's used to bringing home, all because this algae crisis is scaring customers away. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Now to an NBC2 News alert. Fire crews in Collier County have a handle on a brush fire near Veterans Memorial Elementary School and North Naples Middle. The fire grew to about 2 acres, but didn't really threaten the schools or any students on campus. Crews staying there right now to keep an eye on any hot spots. We're working to find out how the fire started.
It says it in plain day, don't drop them off, but you still want to drop them off.
From your Cape Coral News team, dozens of parents are illegally dropping off students at the curb at Cape Coral High School on busy Santa Barbara Boulevard. Police even put up a flashing message board to remind parents of the danger. NBC2's Delia D'Ambra caught families bypassing the drop-off line this morning.
But some people can't in Cape Coral. Delia D'Ambra, NBC2.
The bag was gone, the computer was gone, the seats were all jacked up.
More kids committing crimes, how to keep yourself from becoming a victim.
This water crisis is having a real impact on workers here in Southwest Florida. Coming up, we speak to a woman who works at this restaurant behind me. She's bringing home about half as much money as she's used to.
Only a couple of thunderstorms left. We'll track them using Southwest Florida's only live Doppler radar coming up.
Here's a recap of Congressman Francis Rooney's visit to Southwest Florida today with leaders of several federal agencies looking at our water crisis. Congressman Rooney and Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart went to Clewiston in the morning looking at the ongoing repairs to the Herbert Hoover Dike around Lake Okeechobee. This is a major step to the rehabilitation of the lake because then they can store more water in the lake. It is a $16 billion project, however. Then the congressman traveled to North Fort Myers. He looked at the blue-green algae plaguing the water there. Rooney says he is pushing to get some relief for those suffering and feeling the economic impact. And finally, Congressman Rooney went to Fort Myers Beach to take a look at the impacts of red tide. Lee County contractors have already removed nearly 1,400 tons of dead sea life. Sanibel, another 300 tons. Fort Myers Beach has removed 115 tons of the dead sea life. So now that federal leaders have seen our water crisis, now we need Congress to give us the money and the support that we need to fix the issue. Kelly.
All right, Peter, thanks for your coverage tonight.
Yeah, and we'll have an update of storm chances for tomorrow coming up at 11.